Hello? Hello?
So, how'd you get in here? Did you see the closed signs?
Well, I hopped the fence, of course.
All right, so need to build higher fences and maybe electrify them. What are they here for?
Well, I'm hoping you guys are going to get them going at least.
They don't run?
Well, no, I got them from the dump. I don't know if they run.
All right, got from dump.
Yeah. So are you going to be the one fixing them, or where's the girl that fixes these saws?
Oh, you want to speak to Erica?
Yeah, of course I do.
No problem.
So what's going on here?
So I got to get these saws running. I really hope you guys can get them going soon because I've got a big tree job coming up, and this saw especially would be perfect for that job. But
I'll have a look at them and I'll give you a call. It's the best I can do. But I do have quite a few saws in line up in front of you right now. So it could be the end of next week before you hear from me.
well, I was hoping you could have them done by tomorrow.
It's New Year's Day and I won't be working on these saws today.
Well, that sounds like an issue, not an ish-me.
Sir, you can leave them, but you'll have to wait till I call you.
So you'll call me tomorrow when they're done?
Yeah, I'll call you tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Have a great day. You gonna go back over the gate to get back out?
Yeah, I'll just climb over it.
Oh, there you are. Thanks for stopping in. This echo, I had to put some paper towels down to stop the bleeding. It's leaking all over the place. 290. Mystery saw. I've had guesses. This is a Homelight, a Poulan, a Craftsman. And there's a whole bunch more. I actually can't remember what's in there. We might do that saw next. We'll see. A 260 for service. A Dolmar that won't start. Oh yeah, these three that belong to that fine gentleman that was just here. I think you heard that out front. We'll get to them, but not today. MS260 dumpster saw. This is the fourth and final from those four that came in together. We're going to take this over to the bench right now. The 2-man Hornet. Dolmar that won't start. And a couple 261s that won't start. MS260. Get on my workbench. Hi there. Welcome back to my workbench. My name is Erica, and I'm so glad that you're here today. Do you recognize these 4 chainsaws? These are the 4 Stihls that came in together that were pulled out of a dumpster. So the first one we looked at was this 026 Arctic. It needed quite a bit of work, so we didn't do anything with it. We wanted to see what the rest of these saws needed. The next saw we did was the 024. This is the saw that had the high compression and the upside down badge. This is now a running cutting chainsaw. And then we went on to the Stihl 026. This is my most recent video. And this is now a running cutting chainsaw. We found a cracked impulse line on this saw. This saw here was, what was this? Aftermarket fuel filter, a snipped off fuel line, just kind of some minor stuff. I think someone tried to fix this saw, but didn't go all the way. And that leaves us with this Stihl MS260. We know nothing about it other than somebody threw it in the garbage. And I want to find out why. So we're going to do something a little bit different here tonight. I'm going to send this 026 Arctic over to Tyler's bench, and he's going to work on it. I'm going to clear my bench off and jump into this MS260 and see where I can get with this. And we're going to see if we can't get 4 out of 4 here on the dumpster saws. So the deal here with these is this 026 Arctic. If we can get this up running and cutting and back to the person who found these, he keeps this one and I get to keep and do what I want with the other 3. And we have a bit of some ideas and some surprises coming up for these 3 chainsaws if we can get this one running. So come along with me and let's jump in to this MS260. 026 Arctic for Tyler. Good luck with that.
Thank you.
I'll come back over in a few minutes and see if you're okay.
Okay.
All right, the Stihl MS260 has a sticker on it here. Can I read it? I think this says 2007 for a date of birth. MS260 49cc. I see something engraved in the handle there. BWS maybe? Some kind of initials engraved in it. This is a pretty scruffy, faded looking chainsaw. Looking at the handles and the plastics, the top cover is a little bit burnt there. This one's got the plastic handle, so it wouldn't be bent like some of the metal handles. And no clutch cover, no bar nuts, no bar and chain. All 4 dumpster saws came in missing those things. Chain catcher is almost out of wax. This model has a decompression valve. The saw kind of looks like it's been sitting out under a tree for a while. It doesn't look as bad as that saw that Richard Flagg just had on his channel, the 029. But it's faded and scruffy enough. But that may not mean anything. This thing might clean up like a little diamond. So let's look in that fuel tank. If you have been watching my videos, you know what we found in the tank of the other 3 dumpster saws. We found something that was red and chunky and fuzzy and looked like it had something growing in it. So I kind of expect the same out of this one. Let's find out. If I can get the fuel cap off. There it is. Yeah, there's something in there. And it's red. Let me grab a container. Oh, the smell of that. Well, here is our fuel sample out of this MS260. As usual, it's red. It's chunky. I don't see the fuzz in this that I was seeing in the other samples. And there is some water. You can see it right down there, that yellow stuff. I don't know what this is. I don't know if someone dumped a stabilizer in here. It really stinks, whatever it is. Take a look in the fuel tank here. I can see the fuel line and the fuel filter. Let me zoom in here. You probably want to see in here too. And down in the bottom of the tank there, we have a bit of dirty water, fuel, red stuff, whatever that is. Fuel filter's in there. Just going to pull that fuel filter and fuel line out so we can take a closer look at it. A lot of these dumpster saws, we've found no fuel filters. We have found an aftermarket fuel filter. We've found damaged, cut off aftermarket fuel lines. So let's just pull this out and take a look. That tool that I just grabbed that fuel line with, I get asked about that all the time. There's the part number. Just take that into your Stihl dealer and they should be happy to order you one. So that is a Stihl fuel filter on there. It's pretty dirty looking. And that fuel line, I don't think that is an OEM fuel line. It looks, I don't see the Stihl marking. I think it's aftermarket, but we will look closer at that. Just pressurize that fuel line quick, and we'll be testing the fuel line and carburetor for any leaks. And it looks like it's holding there. We'll just put that back on there, just for now. See the water there, that yellow stuff. Water and dirt in the bottom. Get that sucked out of there. How's it going, Tyler? Going good? Yeah. We'll come over and see you in a few minutes. Let's go over and see what Tyler did.
So this is the Arctic 026 that we had a leak on last week. There's vacuum. And we're at 0.5 bar. And it is holding.
Oh, thank goodness. So because that intake boot was leaking,
yeah, the hole in it,
the way it was, we couldn't get an accurate test of the rest of the saw crank seals.
That's a suspect hole. That's looks like that's not a hole from, that's like poked.
It looks poked.
Look at that.
Yeah.
I don't know if, let's see if the camera can get it. That, but why would anyone?
It looks like someone's tool poked it.
That cylinder's not still. That's what happened. Somebody's rebuilt this saw. That's not. You know what? Actually, I don't see Stihl written down on the bottom of the cylinder. This is aftermarket. Now that I'm looking at it, it just the finish, that's an aftermarket cylinder.
So someone rebuilt this thing, and the intake boot.
When they were installing it, they must have
Damaged it.
They put something through it. That's not a wear. There's a wear. You'd see that crack starting. That's a wear mark. That is just poor.
Well, that must have been disappointing to rebuild this saw and wonder why it wouldn't run.
Still holding vacuum.
Okay.
You'll have to excuse my workbench. All right, let's go to pressure.
Tyler and I don't work in the same conditions.
What?
I can't work surrounded by a mess.
I don't know what. Oh, I should get a camera view here.
You're in view. Looks like you're holding pressure.
All right, so it was just the intake boot. All right, I'm gonna get this back together and.
Okay. Well, good job.
Yeah. Thanks for coming over.
We'll come back and see you in a little bit. See all that dirt and water that just came out of the bottom of that tank. I think we got it flushed out pretty good. This saw might clean up not too bad. Okay, so we have bar oil. We have some fresh mix in there. Let's take this thing outside and see if it'll do anything for us. I'll meet you out there. Well, there, that 260 runs. It doesn't run well, but it runs. Doesn't want to idle. I can kind of feather it up, but it doesn't want to idle. Doesn't run right. If you have to feather a throttle to keep something running, then just don't use it. Something's wrong. So you guys have all watched enough of my videos to tell me, where do we go from here? What should we do first? Well, let's start peeling back the layers here and see what we have. Let's pull that air filter cover off. That's an air filter that's probably been cleaned a lot of times. It's fuzzy. Probably should have been replaced at some point, but someone's cleaned it. All kinds of screwdriver marks on that hardware. Let's take that off. It's possible that at some point somebody really cared for this saw. Probably cared enough to scratch their initials into its plastic. That thing's probably been cleaned many, many times. The last video I did on an 026, remember the wiring in that video was kind of janked up, and I said it probably at one time had a protective coating on it. This is probably what that one looked like at one time. We'll pull that plug out of there and take a look at it. Looks like a Bosch plug. Let me grab my camera and we'll take a quick look down the hole. Well, you're seeing some light carbon scoring in there, but there's nothing in there that would cause the saw to run like we saw outside. Let's grab the compression tester and see what this saw has for compression. Looks like about 130 pounds of compression. It's not the worst we've seen, not the best we've seen. Well, this thing's kind of low compression, but we're going to carry on here and fully diagnose this thing. I want to do a pressure vacuum test. So let's pull the muffler off. We'll have a look in from the muffler side and pull the carb off, and we'll get set up for a pressure vac test. There's a couple T27s down here. Those weren't as tight as I would expect them to be, so probably someone's had this muffler off before. Spark arrestor is totally clean. T27's back in there. They're just a bit hard to see. So looking in that exhaust port, you can see that brownish stuff running down the cylinder. Kind of looks like rusty oil. So if water would have got in this saw at one time down in the engine and the bearings sat in water, you could end up with rust particles in your oil. And the crank bearings, they sound kind of loud. I don't know if you can hear them. The saw looks to me like it's sat outside. These covers tell me this thing's been sitting out in the sun and the rain. An air filter that expired 15 years ago. Water in the fuel. We have low compression. I'm just going to pull the drum sprocket off. Just eliminate that noise. That rim sprocket is completely worn out and rusty. So now that we've got that all off, we know we're not listening to the tinging and banging of the drum sprocket. Loud crank bearings. Well, we're already this far. I'm going to pull that carb off and we'll do the pressure vac test and then we'll decide where we go from there. So even though the crank bearings in this thing are loud, those crank bearings are not the reason why this saw was running like that outside. So let's keep going. Pull that carb off. There's a couple 8mm nuts on there to take off. If your fuel cap acts like that, just go to the dealer and get yourself a new one. They do act up over time. To get that carb off, that handle's in the way. So we'll pull the top part of this handle off, and that is a T25 up in there. There's Pokey. Okay, so we've got our fuel line and we've got our impulse line to disconnect. That's all that's left holding this carburetor on. Those impulse lines, they can grip the carburetor sometimes pretty good. So you kind of push on it as you're trying to pull the carb off. And there's our carburetor. So that is a Stihl fuel line on there. So I'm going to use this tool to block the intake, and that will plug up the impulse. Spark plug back in. Pull that decompression valve out and put a plug in there. Okay, intake, impulse, spark plug, decompression valve, exhaust port, everything is plugged up. Let's go ahead with our pressure vac test. Okay, so we are going to pull vacuum first. Ready? Let's go. And we have a vacuum leak. Okay, let's move over to pressure. I can hear it. So first thing I'll do is make sure it's not my intake or exhaust or anything like that. And if it's not my tools, then we will find a leak. It's leaking pressure pretty good. I can hear it from here leaking. Do you guys remember the 026 video from a couple days ago? What was wrong with that saw? Remember? Impulse line? What do you think's wrong with this one? All right, you see that? The end of my pointer. That's where the impulse line goes to the crankcase. Soapy water. There you go. Look at the bubbles. So 2 of the dumpster saws have a leaking impulse line. So that leaking impulse line would cause this saw to run like what we've seen outside there. But replacing the impulse line doesn't really make a lot of sense when we have loud crank bearings like we do here, low compression. So what should I do with this thing? So there's a couple options for this chainsaw. I could just box it up and send it back to the crypt to be a part saw with loud crank bearings. Or together we could tear this thing right down, go into the bowels of this MS260. We'll do a complete disassembly and find out exactly what it would take to bring this saw back up into running condition. Why don't you guys let me know in the comments what you want me to do? I can move on to the next saw tomorrow, or we can spend another bit of time working on this one. I'll leave it up to you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow.